Hi, everyone. It is Wednesday, June 8th at 3 o'clock p.m., and that means it is time for Women in Business. I have no idea why I was so exuberant with that hi, everyone, but whatever happens. I'm dancing to my own intro music, so I might be a little worried about me. I don't know. Anyway, you don't want to hear what I have to say. You want to hear what my guest has to say. I have an amazing one today. Let me tell you about her. After 15 years in this industry, she's still here and more excited than ever. Ashley Colautti has always been a creative person and probably would have ended up a starving artist if she wasn't pushed into graphic design and then sales. She thinks of it more as problem solving and storytelling. And in this industry, we get to sell fun and joy. I love that. Ashley learned a lot working as a distributor in Toronto, figuring things out as she went. When you can sell anything to anyone, it can be hard to zero in and create a strategy. She became a huge fan of commonsku, which led her to a career with them for 3 years. Being immersed in that environment is like getting a master's degree in promo, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with commonsku. Her job was basically to listen to distributors' pain points like a promo therapist, I love that description, and help them streamline their processes. She really loved it there, but missed the creativity and relationship building on the product side. So she is now at Spector Company as a strategic account manager. Strategic is hard to say. She gets to work with some of her best friends in the industry and take her love for design, technology, and merchandise to the next level. So we are obviously going to have a lot to talk about. Let me bring her in here. Thank you for joining me today, Ashley. I'm so excited you are here.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'd like to point out that I was also dancing to your intro music and working up my nerves because sitting backstage with that intro feels like a real talk show. Here I am.
Well, I have to say the intro bumper is relatively new. I've been wanting one for a while, and I am horrible at anything like that. And I tried to make one myself, and it was like, let's see what a 4-year-old can make. And that's what it looked like.
No, it's
so
awesome.
a friend of mine made one for me, and I do feel like a real show now.
Well, I mean, you are a real show, but it's like the waiting backstage in this app is like, oh, here I come. Walking out.
Well, I don't want to waste time because I know we have a hard out at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock today. Sorry. I know what time it is. Really, I do. But there's a lot of things that I want to talk to you about because, like I told you before the show, I've been cyber stalking you and listening to all the other podcasts that you've done. And for those of you that might be interested in some of the other things that Ashley has done, you can go to the Women in Business Facebook page, which is right here at that link. And you can see a link to some of the other podcasts that Ashley has been on in the past, including Charity Gibson's amazing Badass Women of Promo podcast, which I still aspire to be on someday. Anyway.
I'm doing well. I actually got to be on it twice.
I know, because you are special.
No, I just tag along with some cool people.
Well, the one that actually leads me very nicely, thank you for that, to one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, which is you did a Badass Women of Promo podcast with Sam Cates, who is a friend of yours and also a colleague. I know you don't like to call, or she doesn't like it when you call.
I was going to say, not just a colleague, she's my boss.
Technically, if you looked at an organizational chart, that would probably be how it would work. But I want to talk for a minute about the bad rap that women get when it comes to working together, because there seems to be this idea that women are about competition and that we are all, it's, cat fights and scratching for prestige or whatever it is. So what has been your experience in that area?
It's funny when you bring up competition, because I'm a salesperson and I'm naturally competitive, but I definitely have never thought of being competitive against one gender more than the other. I've been really fortunate to work with some amazing women who have led me down this path of like boosting each other up. So helping somebody always ends up helping you in return as well. And, if we all just boost each other up, then
Mhm.
instead of tear each other down, we're all in a better place for it.
I totally agree with that. And I think it makes me so almost angry when I hear this. Well, I don't want to work for a woman, or I've always worked better with men because men are more secure. And I'm like, a lot of it is fostered by the attitude that you take. If you go into it thinking, I'm going to do my best job and I'm going to take everybody as they are, I think you're fine. And if you also go into it with the idea, in my opinion, that there's enough for everybody. We're not competing for, the one space, which I get there only used to be like we have
Mhm.
the token woman or whatever, but I don't think it's that way anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely hasn't been my experience. I mean, since I entered the workforce, I've probably worked for more women than men. And
Mhm.
it's not even something that I really think about. And I end up in a lot of discussions about this because I do work with a lot of women and I like to be a part of, the women's entrepreneurship
Mhm.
committees and leadership events and things like that. I think it's more giving ourselves the chance to work in a different way. I mean, men and women are different. There are some
Mhm.
differences, and it takes all kinds to get the job done. But there's something special that happens when you get a group of women that are all, trying to do well and care about business
Mhm.
together to get rid of all the cattiness and, the gossip and just work on what's going to help each other grow.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've really experienced with Sam, who's my boss
Mhm.
now, and something that I really admired with her in my last role and why I followed her to this new one. She's always been someone like my biggest cheerleader. She challenges me and really pushes me to just do more and learn as I go. And nothing. I would say some things are difficult, but like nothing, no challenge is too hard to take on. So.
Well, and I think there's something to be said in my experience for, if you find another woman that you work really well with, there's this, they get you in a way, they understand your life better maybe because they're dealing with some of the same challenges. And that's not to say
Mhm.
that men can't or don't try, but there are fundamental differences between how men think and how women think. It's just kind of, so I think I'm kind of in the same boat now that I'm working with someone that I feel like we have a really good connection and we're very complementary and we work really well together. And that's kind of a new experience for me. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because it interested me that you followed Sam to the new job too, because I know, which is the next thing that I want to talk about. This is a nice segue I've got going here. I'm kind of liking this. That you pursued the job at Common that you had quite vehemently. And I want to talk about that for a
Mhm.
minute because one of the things that we talk about on this show a lot is promoting ourselves and
Mhm.
pursuing our goals, and how culturally and maybe internally, or how, I'm not sure how I want to say it, but there's a lot of barriers sometimes that women will put up that stops them from going for things that they want. So
Mhm.
I guess, were you brought up to think you can have whatever you want and you should go for it and you were encouraged to be competitive? Let's start there.
Sure. Yeah. So I would be classified as like an old millennial. I'm like
Okay.
on the end of the older millennial group. And yeah, I was kind of told that I can be anything that I want and I have to work for it, which is maybe the older side. But
Mhm.
I just, I never really saw a difference in gender roles. And it was also apparent, I think about dating and as well as, going for jobs, but I never waited for the guy to ask me out. If I liked somebody, I would ask them out. So I like even from that point, I always just kind of went for what I wanted. And I think if you believe in it and you believe in yourself, you can make anything happen. So that the experience I think you're talking about is when I wanted to work at commonsku, and I was told no at first, and I didn't let that stop me. I just kept going because I knew I would be good at it, and I admired the company and I wanted to work there. So being able to sell myself to the owners of that company, Mark Graham at that point and Catherine, um, it meant that, like, well, if she can sell herself to us, then she can probably sell what we've got going on as well. So I just kind of, you think about what you want, and if you believe that you can do it, then there's nothing that can stop you. You just keep trying until you get it.
Well, I think the reason that this was something that kind of stuck with me a little bit from the stuff that I had heard and watched that you had done was that there are a lot of women that I've had on this show, and I'll admit to being one of them. I am like aces at promoting other people. I can do that all day. But people will say to me, well, why didn't you post about this thing that you did? Or why didn't you post that article you did? Or why didn't you? And I'll say, oh, well, and it's almost like somewhere in my head, there's a little voice that says you have to wait for somebody else to do it. You can't do it yourself. So have you ever had that little voice, or?
I think I might be missing that voice. I mean, sure, there's been times where I haven't put myself forward, but I think it's just experience. Um, I was thinking about this today when I talk about like how long I've been in the industry. From about 20 to 30, I feel like I was working for the job. I wasn't really that passionate about it. I was
Mhm.
into it, but it wasn't like I'd always when people asked me what I did, I would say, "Well, I sell promotional products, but it's not my passion."
Sure.
I always had to lead with that. Like, I wasn't confident that it was enough of a role. Like, there was always something else. And it wasn't until, and I always had side hustles. Like, I always had
Mhm.
my hands in a bunch of different pots, and I could never really figure out what it is that I want to do. And then I would say from about, I don't know, I'm giving you this like timeline now, but from like
That's
30
fine.
to 35, for me, and this is probably typical to a lot of women, and maybe the timeline is a little bit different, but all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait, I need to get like a husband and a kid and get that started. So I was like, okay, this is what I want. This is a little psychotic, but I wrote down a list of everything that I want in a husband. And then
No, I love that,
I kind of went
actually.
looking for it. So I found him online, and I mean, I'm very lucky. Like, I dated a few bad eggs first, but I wrote everything out, and I found the one that I wanted, and then I could check that off my list. And then it was like my next step is to have a kid. So for those 5 years, I wasn't 100% focused on my career. Then I hit about 35, and I was like, okay, now I've got those things done. I had my like wild years from like 20 to 30. I learned a little bit, probably could have done a lot more, but now I'm like really ready to focus. And from that
Right.
point is when I started thinking about like my next move and got really immersed in the industry and was like, this is it. I have one job now, which is a whole bunch of things really, but
Right.
I'm going to focus on this 100% and see what I can do and how far I can go. So I think all of that to say it was a thought that I had today and something that I would share with other people is maybe you have to go through that period to really figure out what you want to do and how to be confident in what you're doing. Or maybe my advice could be like spend a little bit more time on that and don't spread yourself too thin doing all these
Right.
other things. And then you could be further ahead than I am at this point in my life.
Well, I just love that. And honestly, I'm actually in my head right now making a little bit of a list of, okay, if I were going to pick my perfect guy, what would I? Well, there's something to be said for, and I think this is another thing that maybe women aren't taught as much or women aren't told as much, which is figure out what you want, figure out what the barriers are to getting it and how you're going to get over those, and then just pursue it and don't
Hmm.
worry about. I think we're worried about being perceived as, I don't like the term, but ball busters or pushy or arrogant or whatever it is, and there's a lot of cultural kind of stuff lurking out there that kind of tells us that we're supposed to be a little softer and a little. And I don't know, I mean, I like the way that you did it, and I like that you had a goal and you figured it out, and and that's it's not it wasn't, I'm trying to think of what the word is that I want to say. And the only word I can come up with is premeditated. And it kind of was premeditated, but
Oh, it
not
was
in like a
totally
serial killer
premeditated.
sort of way, I guess.
Maybe a little bit crazy. Um, yeah, I don't know. I kind of floated around for like those 10 years when I was learning about different careers and things like that. And then once I figured out a path, you kind of have to
Mm,
jot things down. Anytime I've changed careers, I've sort of, and not even on a small scale, I'll get a big piece of paper and I'll write down like all the pros and cons and really have it in front of me so that I can visualize it. And then it usually steers me the right way.
I like
So,
that. I like that a lot because I think that also speaks to something else we talk about on this show a lot, which is women tend to put their goals and their wants and needs second a lot of the
mhm,
time. And that's because you're, your wife or you're a mother or you're a caretaker for your parents or other family members or whatever it is. And so so I like kind of sitting down and writing it all out and saying, okay, these are the things I want. This is what I want to do. And having it in front of you so you can refer to it and you can pay attention to it. I like that a lot. I really
yeah.
do. Okay, now I have to refigure out my whole life. So
Oh, I do not have it figured out by any means, but right now, my life is good and I'm enjoying it and I feel like I'm being successful and I don't know what my next 5 years is gonna look like, but I need to get that pen out and jot down some ideas, I guess.
yeah, there you go. Well, I'm older than you, obviously, but I like that idea, and I found that that is something that's maybe a generational difference a little bit. I'm 53, so there's women who are like your age and younger tend to be a little more focused on your own goals and what you got, and you take
Mhm.
it more for granted that it should be that way.
Totally. I agree.
And I think
Yeah.
I was raised a little more in the kind of women are supposed to be helpmeets sort of thing, we're
Mhm.
supposed to be the helpmate in the situation, and
Mhm.
it's a little tougher to adjust the mindset to I'm doing what I need to do for me.
Totally. And maybe it sounds selfish, but if a man were doing it, that wouldn't
Yeah,
even be a word that we use. So,
right. And I think it's also something to be said for the whole idea of why don't you deserve to have what you want? Why are your goals or desires or ambitions any less important than anybody else's? So,
totally. This is the equality that the women before us fought for. And
right.
now that we have it, we need to take advantage and it should be equal.
It should be. It really should. But I like discussions like this because I think the more that we talk about this kind of thing and the more that we put ideas out there for how to accomplish these things that we want to do, and just the more that we normalize the idea that you should be able to promote yourself and you should be proud
Mm,
of your accomplishments, and there's nothing wrong with that. The more we get
yeah.
those ideas out there, I think the better off it is for everybody.
Yeah. It's not showing off if you're proud of things that you've accomplished and you're sharing
Right.
them.
Well, and it's not showing off if you did it either. I mean, if you
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
accomplished the thing, whatever the
Yeah.
thing is, but I've known women who will win a very prestigious award or whatever, and then they're kind of tentative about sharing. I'm like, if it were me, I'd
Yeah.
be
To post
mounting
that
that thing on
shit.
my car, man.
Totally.
Make sure that everybody knows. But
And here's the thing, if I see them posting that, I'm gonna be the first one that's applauding them and
right.
boosting them and resharing it because we should all be proud of our accomplishments, whether
Yeah.
they're personal and all of this to say, like, if somebody chooses to prioritize, their family or take care of somebody and the career is on the back burner, that's okay too. I mean, be proud of whatever it is that you choose to do.
I agree with that. And I think there's also a weird imbalance sometimes that doesn't also think that having a strong family and healthy, happy kids and, being a caretaker for an elderly parent that needs help, that they don't think of that as an accomplishment. And
Mhm.
or having a good marriage or a good partnership or whatever it is. I mean, those are all accomplishments too. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that comes with a paycheck.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Obviously, this is this is something we've talked about a lot, and it's something that I feel pretty strongly about, largely because I've struggled with it a lot myself. But I liked your attitude and the way that you just saw something that you wanted. Apparently, you have this habit of you see things you want and you figure out how to get them, and there's no I think what I like most, and it's very refreshing, is there isn't any, and this is a weird word to use, but it's the only word I can think of. There isn't any shame about it. It's like you're unapologetic of this is my thing and I'm going to go after it. And I like that because I feel like a lot of women feel like they have to apologize for having ambitions or for planning or for pursuing their goals or whatever it is. So I like that you.
Oh, and then add the Canadian piece on top of that. Like I should be apologizing for everything.
Yeah. Canadians are perennially nice. I will say that, but we get that in the Midwest too.
That's
Midwesterners
true.
are
Yeah, very
supposed to be
similar.
very, very nice as well. Some of us are a little more sharp-tongued than others, but that's another thing. But I really did want to talk about that. And before we get on to the next topic, I want to just touch base for a minute because you and I are both part of an organization that I really like. And I wanted to talk about Promo Kitchen for a minute because I think it's a really good organization and they're doing good work. So how long have you been a part of Promo Kitchen?
Um, so I believe I've been a part of it since 2000. What is it? What is the year now? 22. So
22.
about 2 years. So
Okay.
I joined right when the pandemic hit as a way to just, network with people and still be around people and be a part
Mhm.
of something. And suddenly I had, a little more time in the evenings to help
Sure.
out. I'm like a lot of people, and I didn't realize that Promo Kitchen was more than a big party in Vegas that I went to
Yeah.
every year. I think they've done a lot to really grow and show people that it's the mentorship and the pillars of education, and really they've done an amazing job with Kate and Johanna
Mhm.
at the helm. Is that what you would say?
Yep.
They really, really push it, and we have so many volunteers now, and it's really great. It's been really great to just get to know people and have
Mhm.
that connection, um, but also being able to, spread the word and learn from each other. And I've mentored some people, and I've been a mentor. I've been a mentee and a mentor.
Mhm.
And just the more perspectives that you get from people, especially in this industry, the better.
I
Because if
love
you
it.
don't know, then you just don't know. Like I was stuck in a job for probably too long, and I know you and I were talking about this
Mhm.
before the show. Like I spent probably too long in that role because I didn't seek to go outside of it and really understand what
Yeah.
opportunities were. So doing things like that is such a huge benefit. I can't
I would
recommend it
agree.
enough.
And I want to touch on one thing you just said because this is you're hitting all my pet little projects today. Mentoring. I am really, and I fully realize that as I'm saying this, I am not currently mentoring anyone officially, but there's something to be said, I think, for the value of a mentor mentee relationship on both sides. And I just want to ask you real quickly, what do you think you got? What was the main thing you think you got out of being a mentor? And what was the main thing you think you got out of being mentored, so to
Oh,
speak?
well, I had the privilege of mentoring someone that was much, much smarter than me, and I learned so much from her. She was just, she still is obviously very ambitious
Mhm.
and just like amazing ideas from her. And then as a mentee, um, when I first started, I was really looking for help of how to, break through into the U.S. market because I've been in
Mhm.
Canada. Um, and my mentee was Bill Petrie, and he had a lot of really great advice. He's really well connected,
Mhm.
and he helped me a lot. He's actually the one that got me to volunteer with Promo Kitchen. So I had started just as a mentee. Um, so he really opened the door in a lot of ways, and opened my eyes to, things that I wouldn't have known about otherwise.
Well, I think One of the reasons that I'm so passionate about this, I think, is because I think there's a value for more women being mentors. I mean,
Hmm.
not that obviously you had a male mentor and that worked out great, but there's something for women working with women, I
Hmm.
think, that makes a difference. And I just really, and the other question I have on this subject, and then I'll get off it, but um, time wise, what I hear from a lot of women when I say, oh, you should be a mentor, you should really be sharing what you know, is I don't have time. I don't have time. Was it like a huge time sink, did you think, when you
No,
did
it
it?
is whatever you have time for, you can make it work.
Okay.
So before going into it, think about how much time you're willing to put in and just be, you know, forward with that. And when people reach out to you to be your mentee, just let them know what your time is so that
Right.
they can be prepared. Because if they need somebody that's a little more accessible, then that gives them the option to maybe go with somebody else. But it could be an hour a month. If that's all you have time for, I
Mhm.
think it still provides a lot of value.
That totally makes sense to me, and that's what I tell people when they say, "I don't have time," but
Mhm.
I don't know, I think a lot of people think that it's just gonna be a huge commitment, and they're concerned that they can't commit enough time to make it worthwhile for whoever is on the other end of the relationship, but I'm hoping maybe this will, convince some people to do it, because I know, the Promo Kitchen mentorship program is always looking for people on both sides of the equation. So something to consider if you're
I
interested.
would, I sense how busy everybody is right now in the
Mhm.
industry. Everybody is so busy. I think the start of every meeting I have is, "Do you know anybody that's looking for a job?"
Yeah.
Like, so I get that people don't have time, but think about, like, if you spend an hour every other week with a mentee, that opens up a whole web of other connections. So,
Mhm.
I mean, not to be selfish about it, but like,
No.
it's connecting you to all these people. You never know what doors it might open to be a mentee or a mentor. I would say, make the time because these are the things that are worth it.
Well, and I like that you said that, because I'll be honest, when I joined up with Promo Kitchen as a sous chef, one of the thoughts that I had was I'll get to meet a bunch of people who are movers and shakers in various
Hmm.
places, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I also was thinking there'll be a lot of cool women that I can have as guests on my show,
Yeah, it makes perfect
which
sense.
has
And
worked
then,
out because, Johanna's been on, and Kate's
mhm,
been on, and Kathy Chang's been on, and now you're here, and, that wasn't a primary goal, but it was certainly a secondary goal, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. You can have multiple kind of goals or ambitions for whatever it is that you're doing. It doesn't all
for
have to be
sure. Yeah.
altruistic.
I mean, we're not saving babies with Promo Kitchen. We're trying to better the promo industry
Sure.
and connect us all. And so by benefit of that, like naturally, of course, you're going to make connections that are
Mhm.
are a benefit to you. So yeah.
Which I think people miss that kind of aspect of joining a committee or joining an organization, and they think that there's something wrong if they think about it that way. And it's like, you can have more than one goal in doing something. And one of the goals can be, this could potentially help my career or get me to a goal that I want to
Of
get to. And
course.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm
100%
sorry,
I
I'm on my
agree.
soapbox now.
I mean, Johanna and Kate will be the first to say if you join Promo Kitchen, like, what skills do you want to develop? Let's put you
Right,
in something that will help you hone those skills. So,
right. Or if you have skills that are of benefit to them, it's a
yeah,
place
both
you can
ways.
use them. So
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
awesome too. Okay, so off Promo Kitchen now, because we could talk about that for the whole rest of the hour, but I really want to hit on this other thing that I learned about. You mentioned it to me, and then I went and listened to the podcast where you talked about sustainability. And I've
Hmm.
written about this subject a few times, but what you guys talked about was very interesting. So I want to talk about that for a bit, because I'm trying to think where I want to start here. And I think where I want to start is with the whole concept of what they call greenwashing, which I had never heard of really before. But it's the idea that companies try to take on the mantle of being environmentally friendly without really being environmentally friendly. And what bugs me about that is they make it a marketing tool instead of really caring about, I don't love that. It bothers me.
For sure. I think you need to be really authentic. And I don't mind if people use eco as a marketing
Sure.
ploy or a way to get people in the door, as long as they are truthful about it and
Mhm.
they really are making a difference. Um, One thing that kind of scares me off of this industry is the amount of landfill that
Yeah.
we create. So, a passion of mine is trying to find a better way.
Mhm.
And we can do that. It doesn't necessarily have to be an eco item, but it could be something that's just, better quality or a thoughtful design,
Mhm.
or you're really thinking about who the end user is going to be so that it's something that they really appreciate and use. I don't want to sell things that end up in a landfill. That is my
Right.
mission. Hmm.
Well, and I think it became, being eco-friendly, being green, whatever you want to call it, it became kind of trendy for a while. And a lot of
It
people
did, yes.
jumped on the bandwagon without really understanding what that meant.
Mhm.
And
I
I
remember
think,
when that happened. I feel like
yeah,
it was almost 10 years ago now, where, like, eco was the new thing, and
yeah,
it felt I remember reading stories about, you know, companies buying water bottles that weren't even used, like the plastic ones that were meant,
mhm,
for filling with water, and they didn't even make it that far. They just got turned into fabrics. Do you
yeah,
remember this, like, 10 years ago? And then a lot of people started getting off the eco. Now I think it's back and it's real. And more companies that I'm talking to, and I mean end users, have
mhm,
mandates that they have to purchase eco-friendly. Like, it's built into everything. And I love hearing about that. It's not even just in their purchasing, but it's in everything they do, whether they're moving away from paper in the office, or they've changed the lighting, or they're
mhm.
encouraging people to take public transit. Like, all of these things do make a difference.
I really think they do. And I think here's one of the things. There's a lot of things that I want to talk about in this topic, but one of the places I think I really want to start is what people can do individually. And we say things like, okay, don't, use a plastic or use a tumbler instead of a plastic bottle for your water. Don't
Mhm.
buy bottled water, get a Brita pitcher or whatever it is,
Mhm.
and all that kind of stuff. But I I guess let's start there. What are some simple things that people can do?
If you follow me on Instagram or anything like that, you know
Mhm.
that I'm like an advocate for trying not to drive places.
Okay.
Um, Maybe that might not be possible for everybody, but if you think about how much fuel you use, I mean, that's a huge impact. So any chance you
Yeah.
have to carpool, take transit, walk, take a bike, like eliminating some of those short trips. mm, Right now, there's an incentive because gas is so high.
Yeah.
So why not give it a try? It's healthier for you and the environment. When it comes to our industry specifically, look for quality things. Um, Make sure that you're giving your client something that the receiver, again, is really going to want and use. So
Mhm.
understanding, like, asking the right questions, um, trying to avoid, like, freight that's too far or too much packaging. Like, all of those things can make a big difference.
Well, the one thing that I have to say that I've noticed recently from some companies is I'll order something and I'll look at the package I ordered perfume samples because that's my thing right now. I'm like, I want a new perfume and I don't want to invest in a huge, so I order little sample packs.
Yeah.
And this one company sent me this sample pack and it was this little tiny box because the samples are only like that big.
Hmm.
But it was the actual sample box was really tiny, but it was in this huge box with all this, plastic packing material and everything. And I just wanted to write to them or send them an email and say, why is all you could have like just wrapped this, or had a box specially made that would just fit just a little. I don't understand that.
Yeah, and there are better options now. I mean,
Yeah.
there's shortages everywhere, which is a challenge, but I'm
Yes.
sure that company could find a better way than using all of that plastic.
Yeah, and it's just, you look at it and you go, well, this is a total waste because I don't have anything to do with any of this stuff. I mean, when I worked at a company where we had a shipping department, if I got a bunch of shipping detritus or whatever you want to call it, I take it and give it to the shippers and they reuse it. And at least then, but I
Hmm.
don't ship a lot of stuff anymore. So what am I going to do with it? It's just,
Yeah, it's insane how much we end up. Like my recycling bin is always overflowing here
mhm.
because we order everything online. I wish shopping locally makes a lot of sense in some situations, but I don't have time for that. So I'm ordering my
Yeah.
groceries. I do order from Amazon from time to time, but it's
Yeah.
like, how can I bundle these things so that I'm not getting so many packages? And
Well, and I also think that there are companies that are really serious about this and they're doing it the right way. And there are companies that they say they're serious about it, but they're maybe not doing
hmm.
things the way they should be doing them. I guess that's a question. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but maybe you have some thoughts on it. How do you tell the difference? If you have a salesperson that approaches you, how do
Yeah.
you know if the company's legit or not?
Well, a great place to start is Promo Cares.
Okay.
So Promo
Yep.
Cares, I believe it's promocares.org. They've
Mhm.
got a great list of suppliers that have already been vetted.
Oh,
So if
cool.
you're in the industry, that's a great place to look. They actually shipped out the Ukraine
Yeah.
campaign T-shirts in compostable packaging.
Yes, that
I'll
was
have to
very
look
cool.
that up, but I love that, and I've been seeing that used a lot more. It says something on the bag like this bag is dirt or something, or like dirt bag, which is
Yeah, I'm
also
trying to
really
remember
funny.
because I got one of those too, and
Mhm.
but
I'll
I
have to,
remember reading that the bag was compostable, and I thought, "Oh, that's pretty
yeah.
cool."
Yeah, that's really cool. One of the reasons I chose to work at Spector, amongst many other things, mostly culture and people, but they have an amazing sustainability um, commitment. And it's not just on the products, but it's a lot of stuff that they don't advertise, like what
Mhm.
they're doing in the actual factory and the way that they promote it internally. I think it's making a big impact. Where were we going with this? I'm rambling on.
No, you were fine, you were fine. Well,
Yeah.
I guess the question that I asked you was kind of aimed
Mhm.
at if you're someone who's new to this, but you're trying to be mindful of it and you're trying to buy products that are, up to standard, how do you figure out who's legit? And you said go to promocares.org.
Mhm.
They have a list, which I think is a
Mhm.
very good thing. But from a sales perspective, let's talk about this for a minute since
Mhm.
that's what you do. How do you convey to customers who maybe either don't get it or are kind of I have talked to a lot of people who say, "Oh, well, yeah, that's something we really should be doing, but it's expensive. The things are more
Mhm.
expensive," or people don't really care, or any number of excuses that basically translate to I want something for 5 cents and I want it to be really cool. But
Yeah, I think right now it's a little bit easier because from what I've heard is that the clients are demanding it and they're asking
oh,
for
that's
it. We've
cool.
got younger buyers that are more aware and they care more about the story of a product and the life cycle of a product and where things are coming from. And maybe it's not necessarily eco, but they want to know compliance things like where is it made, who's making it, are they treated fairly.
Mhm.
I think the way that you can sell it is tied into the whole brand story.
Mhm.
So the person that's receiving this bottle, like how do you want them to feel? And maybe it costs a little bit more, but if you have it packaged in something that, like our boxes here, and a lot of other suppliers do this too, but our standard packaging has right on it that it's eco-friendly, it's
Oh,
recycled, it's
nice.
compostable, and that's on purpose because the person that's opening this can feel good about the
Mhm.
gift that they're receiving, and it just that's that's the message that you want to relay to the people that are buying it is like how do you want people to feel when they open it up and look at it, and if there's some kind of story that can tie along with it, like maybe there's a hang tag on a bag and it says what it's made of and you've saved
Mhm.
this many water bottles from the landfill. Or I saw a podcast recently. It was one of Common SKUs about the 10 tree
Mm-hmm.
program. So, you're giving someone a t-shirt, and that t-shirt, the sale of it caused 10 trees to get planted. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you can roll that into the whole story, and then the end user that's giving it out can explain it to the person that's receiving it, it just makes people feel like they're cared about and that
Sure.
the company cares.
Well, I think I agree with that totally. And what I really like about all this, and I think the point that you made earlier is something that I want to explore a little bit, which is people who are younger generations, millennials and after, tend to be a lot more aware of this than people who grow up, say, when I did. Even
Hmm.
though I think people my age are trying to be more aware about this stuff and pay attention to it, but it's kind of built in with the younger generations because you guys, I sound like I'm 90. You can't get off my lawn. But I feel like sometimes the young generations that are younger than mine had such a leg up on a lot of this stuff. I mean, was that something that you just always thought about or were told about?
No, I don't think so. But it's something that I'm noticing now, that it's
Hmm.
definitely, and it's all in the way that you present it too. Like, I
Sure.
think it needs to be less about cost and more about purpose and
Right.
what it's doing and how it's going to, how it's going to make your brand look and feel. And that's more important than maybe quantity. So,
I like
yeah.
that. I do because I think that's when people sell, at least in my experience, and I understand that I have not had every experience in the world, but when people have tried to sell me eco-friendly, they usually try to sell it on it's trendy.
Hmm.
And to me, I always feel like that's the worst reason to do something because anything that's trendy, it's like fidget spinners. Fidget
Yeah,
spinners
that
were
means it's
trendy,
going to
so
go
everybody was
away.
selling fidget spinners and going, "Oh, this is the perfect thing. Everybody's going to love this." How
Hmm.
many people are playing with fidget spinners now? I mean, it's trends. Trends are by their nature
Hmm.
going to go away.
The thing that
So,
I want to see, and when I think you really want, is like when you sell that quality T-shirt to someone, and then many years from now they're like, oh my gosh, I'm still seeing people in it. Or I remember on the distributor side, we did these really lovely blankets from Canada,
mhm,
as a customer appreciation gift. And for years and years after, like 10 years after, people were saying, oh, that blanket, it's so nice. It's still on my couch. I use it all
mhm.
the time. Like, that that's a story about something being eco-friendly. It's eco because it was quality and it was thoughtful, and the person receiving it is keeping it. So how can we look at the items that we're trying to sell, and where are they going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? If you can wrap that into kind of the story that you're selling, trends don't matter anymore. Like,
Yeah, I
sure,
think
it's
that's
it's
totally
trendy right
true.
now, but is it going to be trendy, a few years from now? Are you still going to be seeing it? Are people going to be posting it on their social feeds, like
Right.
pop up on their travels?
Well, and I think I really I want to talk about sustainability some more, but I just want to segue because we're getting close to being out of time here, but I want to segue a little bit to sales because
Okay.
obviously this is something that you've done for quite a while. And one of the things, I mean, first of all, I'm sure you're aware that there are certain segments of the industry, and it's more men maybe than women, where salespeople get a bad rap. Salespeople are shysters. They're just out to make money. They don't care what they sell you as long as they get a paycheck, all that kind of stuff. That's not been my experience. But is that an attitude that you've ever encountered?
Oh yeah, for sure. The
Okay.
trunk slammers, like this industry is known
Yeah.
for them.
Like,
I
hey, I have a great deal for you, buddy.
I mean, I didn't grow up wishing that I could be a salesperson when I grew up.
Hmm.
Like nobody, it's almost like a dirty word to be a
Hmm.
salesperson. Now I'm proud of it because first off, I would never sell something that I don't believe in, and I never have,
Right.
which can be really hard to do. Somebody has to sell some of those things that we don't believe in, I guess. But I think you have the power now to choose, and being a salesperson can be, the most fun job in the world because
Right.
it's all built on relationships. And I think only selling things you believe in is going to build those relationships even further because you're being authentic. And I'm never like jamming things down people's throat. I really want to solve problems, to
Hmm.
tell stories, and help other people grow their business. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a supplier or a distributor. That's what we're trying to do.
I think that's very true. And I also think, and one of the things that I find very interesting about the sales field in general and also women getting into that field is depending on the position that you have in the company that you're working for, the sky's the limit as far as what you make and
Hmm.
what you can do. And I always find that interesting because there's this other kind of thing that goes around. And well, women don't make good salespeople because they're not ambitious enough, or they're not aggressive enough, or they're not
That's
whatever the
crazy.
thing is. And I wanted to talk to you about that. We've already established that you definitely are ambitious and you go for what you want, but and
Oh, yeah.
that's not a pejorative in any way at all. That's just, I think that's wonderful. But I want to talk to you about that because I think there is still this perception in the industry that either all the women there's two stereotypes that I have heard and have encountered. All the women in sales are brassy and pushy and arrogant, or women aren't good salespeople. So let's talk about both of those for a minute. In your experience, are there a lot of pushy, arrogant women or
Um,
salespeople?
Gosh, I'm sure there are, but like equally men and women that are pushy. I think sales is a skill, and it's more
Yeah.
about connecting with people. Um, I I make lists and I accomplish the things that I want to, but I'm also a hustler. And some of the best salespeople I know are women because they know how to manage their time.
Mhm.
Um, Whether you have kids or not, I mean, kids have taught me how to make the most of a 10-minute increment. That's for
Sure.
sure. Um, it's whether you're male or female, it's the people that are willing to put in the effort.
Mhm.
Whatever you're selling, you've got to, you know, hustle. You have
I think
to
that's true.
you have to try. As long as you try, then you're going to sell something, you know? So sometimes in my career that meant I was on the phone cold calling people.
Mhm.
Um, it's it's being a bit of a detective. It's, not giving up. You're going to get a lot of rejection,
I
and
like
learning how to
that.
deal with that and moving forward.
Well, and I think there's something to be said for, in my experience, and this is my theory, and you can tell me I'm full of crap if I am. But I think women actually make better salespeople because they know how to build relationships. And I think relationships are, as you've said, relationships are where what selling is about.
Well, your buyers are both male and female, so it
Sure.
only makes sense that there would be a spot for both uh, in this role. Building relationships, I mean, the main thing in sales is to listen. That's 101. So if
Mhm.
you're a good listener, then and you're actually paying attention and you can react to what people are telling you, then you'll be all set.
I totally think that's true. And I think it's one of those things that the other thing that I hear from women sometimes about sales or a sales role, especially if it's a commission sales role or running their own business, which I want to talk
Mhm.
about this for just a second because I think it's something that you may have some insight into, is the idea that they're scared that they can't make it for some reason, that there's going to be too much competition, or they're not going to have the right ideas, or they're not going to have enough hustle, or whatever it is, or there isn't going to be enough and they're not
Mhm.
going to get their piece of the pie. So I want to talk about how you deal with that idea. Have you always kind of operated, and I hate this term because it's very new agey, but have you always operated from an abundance mindset, or did you have to deal with that kind of, what if I don't, what if I can't find the clients, or what if I don't make the connections I need to make, or whatever it is.
I've definitely like been worried about things in the past, but I know if I put the time and the effort in that there's always enough. This is a big
Mm-hmm.
world. There's a lot of opportunity. If you can't find it in your backyard, you go searching somewhere else. So, if there's not enough places in Canada, I'm going to move to the States. Like you can
Sure.
always keep expanding, or you can sell anything you want. In the promo industry, you've got all these suppliers that you can buy from, and the world is your oyster. So I think the hardest part is narrowing in and focusing instead of
Mm.
being like, oh my God, there's a squirrel or there's a shiny thing over there. It's like, that's my problem, is that I'm always distracted by the next opportunity and I really need to like focus. But there's definitely enough business, whatever industry you're in, just about.
Mhm.
There's enough business to go around.
Well,
Have to
and I
look for it.
also think then this is another thing that I want to address real quickly, because there's this idea that sales is intimidating or hard to do, or and I talk to people who say, "Oh, I don't have the personality, or I'm too introverted, or I'm too shy, or I wouldn't be able to be effective." And my theory has always been that anybody can be a good salesperson. They just have to do it in their own way. Am I right about that? Or do you think there are
Hmm.
traits that make good salespeople?
I definitely think that you have a point there because if you think about your buyers, they have all kinds of different
Sure.
traits. They're not all extroverts. There's definitely a lot of introvert buyers, and they might relate to somebody that's a little more introverted.
Right.
So, but I do think that, to be a good salesperson, you have to be a bit of a chameleon and understand who you're talking to and kind of get to their level. So maybe it isn't for everyone, and not everybody has to be a salesperson, but if
Mhm.
that's what you want, if that's what you're going after and that's something that brings you some kind of passion, then I'm sure that there's a way you can use your own personality and tailor it to,
Mhm.
you know, sell in your own way. One thing is just that has helped me because I used to be kind of shy and I was terrible at public speaking, and making cold calls can be super intimidating. Got
Mhm.
to a point where I understood that the person on the other end of the sales call or the people that are listening to this presentation, they're just humans, just
Mhm.
like me. And they mess up and they're not so sure. And like, we're all just humans trying to do our best. And if we do our best and we fail, then we can learn from that and we try something
Mhm.
different next time. But I mean, just don't be afraid and go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Somebody's going to say no.
Yeah.
Fine, you move on to the next one.
That was actually, I love that you said that, because that was actually one of the best pieces of advice that somebody ever gave me, was because I used to be very like, oh, I couldn't possibly, I couldn't possibly do that. And somebody said to me, what's the worst thing that happens if you ask for something and the person says no? You didn't have it already, so you don't lose anything if you
Totally. Yeah.
ask. But if you ask and they say yes, then you've gained something that you wouldn't otherwise have had. So, and for some reason, I never thought of it like that. And once I
Hmm.
got that in my brain, I was like, that makes so much sense.
And I think to add to that, to believe that you're helping them.
Yeah.
And because that's what sales is. I'm not going to sell you something that's not going to help you. And especially in my role and basically any role that I've had, it's like right now as a supplier, when I'm calling a distributor, I'm not just trying to sell, this thing. I'm trying to grow their business. And I think
Mhm.
I have something that's really going to help them do that. So going into it knowing that that's what you want to do makes it a little bit easier and less salesy and
Right.
you know.
Well, and I like that, because I think that's really what the best salespeople are trying to do, is to, the I don't want to say the run of the mill or the bad salespeople, because I don't think that's fair, but you can always tell the people who genuinely care about your business and want to help you, and the ones who are just here because you were number 5 on their list today and they need to,
Mhm.
make so many sales calls so their boss won't be mad.
Even if you have one of those roles, though, I think it's just changing your frame of mind and thinking
Mhm.
about it a different way, and it'll make you feel better about yourself, your job, and probably make you sound a little bit better to whoever's receiving those phone calls.
Well, I have one last question because we're getting close to the end here, but I just want to ask for younger women who think they might want to get into sales, what would you tell them that they should learn or focus on?
Back to our promo kitchen conversation, get a
Yes.
mentor because you will learn so much from somebody else. Why wait? Whatever
Mhm.
your field is, try and find a mentor and um, just listen to podcasts, immerse yourself in whatever industry you're in, make connections, put yourself out there. If you fall, just get back up again.
Good
Everybody,
advice for
you
anybody.
know,
It doesn't have to be a salesperson, but
everybody's out there trying to make it. So just keep trying.
I love it because I think that's so important to keep getting up. That's I think one of the things that I've heard from other women who've been on the show. It seems to be people who come on this show are just awesome women. Let's just say that because they seem to
Well, I've
have
seen your
this.
guests. I have to agree. You've had some amazing women.
I've been very, very lucky. I'm gobsmacked by my own luck sometimes that how this little thing that I just thought would be fun to do has become what it's become. But I think one of the things that a lot of the women who have been on the show have in common is the ability to absorb an issue or, a setback or whatever it is and go, okay, that was that. And now I'm going to get back up and pursue the next thing. And I think that's a valuable skill. And it's something that not everybody has. So maybe this is my final last question. Where do you think, and I understand this is very kind of new agey and esoteric, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Where do you think resilience comes from?
Mm. I think personally, like I've got a bit of grit because of the things that I chose to do in my life where
Mhm.
I was knocked down many times and just kept coming back. Where does that desire to come back come from? I don't know how to put that into words. I mean, you know,
Well, it's something that I've been trying to puzzle out, and I keep hoping somebody's
yeah.
gonna have the answer
Oh,
because
who has the answer? The drive. What makes us keep going?
I think I always call it I have the flame, which was and honestly, sometimes the flame was just whoever hurt me or put an obstacle my way, they're not winning,
Mm.
you know? And I don't know if that's what it is. So I keep hoping I'll find the answer, but I'll keep asking the question and we'll all think about it and maybe we'll come up with something. But we are getting to the end here. I want to very quickly just put up if you want to see more about Spector and Company, you can go here and find out more about what they do and who they are. If you want to learn more about Ashley, you can go here and you can see a bunch of the other places where she's been talking to people and certainly this one. And thank you so much for being here. This was so fun. I
Thank you for
appreciate it
having
so
me.
much. And I think we had a
I
great
appreciate it.
discussion and we put a lot of good info out there.
All right.
But
Thank you so much.
so anyway, thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate as always all of you watching and come back next week and there will be another guest who unfortunately the name has escaped me at the moment. I think
It's a
it's Kathy
mystery.
Ware, but I can't swear to that. So look for it next week. You'll see it. Anyway, thank you everybody. I will see you
Thank
soon. I'm hitting end broadcast.